Hi, hello. So we're here today to do a very important um, live that is dedicated to a beautiful small dog, Jack Russell. No, Jack Russell's on the mind. Yorkshire Terrier. Hey Tracy, hi, thanks for joining. Called Bonnie. And one of my very new Canine Flow students, Joe, has taken Bonnie on, and she's had several homes and is feeling very overwhelmed. She's not an old dog really, and she's had quite a few homes in her time already, and it's very overwhelming for Bonnie. And when Joe signed up for Canine Flow practitioners training and asked me about Bonnie, I really felt compelled that this was an important thing to do, to talk about anxiety and overwhelm in particular with our dogs, and also it helps us, of course, to consider it for ourselves whenever we're talking about emotional information connected to our dogs. It also helps us to think about it for ourselves as well. And this is actually quite an overwhelming time of year. Christmas can be, can't it? For many, many people, or the lead up to Christmas. Being where I am, and it's not particularly Christmassy, to be fair, so I generally don't feel it's Christmas until it's like on the day or the day before. But I can imagine, and I know, having lived in the UK before, what it's like. So this is important for us all. So I'm going to just read out the names of the dogs and the people that this is also dedicated to, this healing practice that we're going to do, this connection that we're going to have to the Sacred Canine Heart. And it's going to be dedicated to all dogs really that have anxiety and overwhelm, but these owners and dogs in particular have highlighted that they would like to be part of this and be included today in our practice. So Joe and Bonnie, obviously dedicated and started really because of Bonnie and how Bonnie feels at the moment, and Doris and Gabby, Jane and Angel, Yvonne and Amy, Marjorie and Merlin, Jean and another Bonnie, and Annette and Cody. So you're all going to be included in this, and my intention is that anybody watching as well will get something from this and have an understanding of what's happening for their dog in terms of overwhelm and anxiety. Okay, so I'm going to do this in 3 stages. So what I'm going to do is talk a bit about anxiety and different ways we might be able to support dogs that have got overwhelm and anxiety. And then we're going to do our practice. So we connect up to the Sacred Canine Heart, bring through some energies so that we can transform what's happening. So in Canine Flow and the Sacred Canine Heart, what we do is we aim to bring light in, and we bring in the energy frequencies of that which we want. So we will rarely pick up issues that we need to let go of and see it from that point of view. We believe that if you bring in what it is you want to be feeling or you want to be seeing in your reality, and you bring the light in, that will naturally shift things. So there doesn't need to be a consistent focus on that which we don't want or that which is troubling us in some way. So we're bringing in the light, we're literally lighting up ourselves, lighting up our dogs and lighting up the situation. So we give it as many opportunities to shift and change as possible. So with anxiety, and a reason I'm including overwhelm as well, is that I believe that our dogs are actually way, way more energy sensitive and information sensitive than we believe. And they just have different ways of showing this and different ways of expressing those feelings when they come up for them. So a dog is really a feeling being. And in a moment when we do our practice, we're actually going to be linking into really being present and what it feels like to be a very present creature on planet Earth. Because we really, as humans, have this ability to keep going into the past. I should have done that. I should have said this. Why didn't I do that? And questioning and judging ourselves about things that have happened, or to really be projecting into the future and be sitting thinking, oh, I'll do that next time, or I'm going to go and make dinner after I've done this, and really projecting into the future and into the past, whereas our dogs don't sit and do that. They're very present beings. And really, in the practice that we do, we want to come back to that feeling of presence so that it actually gives us a deeper understanding of how our dogs are understanding the world and how our dogs are sensing the world. Because when you're in that very present state, that's when shifts and changes can happen, and energy can flow far quicker. So when dogs go into overwhelm and have anxiety, it's usually because they aren't able to express out. So they have an accumulation of emotions and they're not able to express those out. And this happens in a 3-stage process. And this is how we see the majority of behaviors actually that we work with in Canine Flow. We use this particular process. We have several different techniques, as you may well know. Some of you probably know Canine Flow better than others that are watching. So we have lots of different techniques, several that we particularly like to use. We use professional canine hypnotherapy, for instance. We use a very powerful Fibonacci spiral work in what we do, which is utterly transformational. The Fibonacci spiral is a sacred geometry. It's like the beginning of all life. Our DNA has this mathematical sequence. All of nature has this mathematical sequence. We won't go too much into it now, but we use that, for instance, in it. But we also have this way of looking at dogs, whatever behavior they're showing, with this 3-stage process. So we will think about what information is going into the dog. We will look at all the different environmental factors that may be putting information into the dog, even colour. Colour, we know, is a frequency, and I know this is used a lot in terms of explaining energy that we can't see, but I'll bring it up again because colour really is a frequency. So even the colour of your dog's bed, the colours that you wear, the colours around in the house, these are all frequencies that are going to have a vibrational effect on the dog. Okay, so that's one example. The sounds that are around the dog, whether there's been a solar flare recently, whether it's a full moon, these are all things that are really, really important to consider because they are all things that are information, energetic frequencies that are going in the dog. And as anyone who's ever heard me talk before knows, the biggest influence to your dog's information energetically is your own emotions. Especially if that dog is your soul dog, is your heart dog, is a dog that's come to you because that dog's purpose here on planet Earth is to support you through emotional release and emotional transformation. Our dogs are really here with us for a reason. And this is something that I, for many years, kind of knew but wasn't really sharing so much with the world. But they really, really are here for a reason with us. And they are getting themselves in front of the people that they need to be in front of. I mean, we hear some amazing stories, don't we? That guy that was running in India and the stray dog found him, and that dog was not leaving his side. That dog knew that it had found its person and that it could complete its sacred contract with that person. And in the end, of course, as we know, the man took the dog and rehomed the dog, if you like, or accepted the dog into his life. So that dog is now able to complete its sacred contract of allowing that person to ground and transform emotional energies, because that's what we're here on this planet to do, to ascend and make a difference in that way and live more from our hearts. And our dogs are in front of us to help us to do that. So we, as well as those other environmental factors, have a huge impact on what goes into the dog, what information is around the dog, what's going into the dog, and what's influencing, if you like. So when I say things like what's going into the dog, I mean, it sounds quite almost a blasé way, but for the sake of just describing this 3-step process, that's the terminology I'll use at the moment. I guess it's what's influencing the dog, really. So then we think about what is the dog's state of being when that information comes to them. Okay, so we will look at the dog's state of being. Now, we don't have to go necessarily into the past. Sometimes there's really obvious reasons why the dog's state of being is the way that it is. So we'll be looking at that dog as a physical state of being and an emotional state of being. Okay, so we will look at how do they feel at that moment that event happened, what information was coming into them or around them, and how did they feel when they received it. Because obviously if you know that you are perhaps you've had far too many cups of coffee that day, you're in a completely different state of being when something happens to you, when information energetically is around you, than if you haven't had that much coffee that day. So we will always look at the dog's state of being, and thinking about a dog on a physical level is really, really vital at this stage as well. And this is used in some other wonderful training methods like T-Touch as well. They look at the dog's state of being. I trained as a T-Touch practitioner up to P2, and I loved it because we really were looking at that dog's state of being. So in Canine Flow, we will be looking at what's going into the dog, what's around energetically, including you, mega, mega important. Then we'll be looking at the dog's state of being at the time that is received, which obviously can change, which is why sometimes your dog can have the same information going in, but doesn't react in the same way. Because like all things, all creatures that have a heart, okay, and can feel emotions, it fluctuates throughout the day. We come in and out of alignment, in and out of balance throughout the day. So we're never really at a complete fixed state of being. So it's about learning how to observe what's going on physically for your dog and emotionally for your dog, so that you can support them to be in a state of being that all these things can happen and it doesn't influence them so much. Okay, and one of the ways, or a set of the ways that we use within Canine Flow to enable them to be in a wonderful state of being, in an allowing state of being, and what we call a flow state of being, so the emotions can keep flowing and being expressed, is to encourage as many different ways for the dog to express itself emotionally, so that the flow happens. So we come to this third stage. How is the dog expressing themselves emotionally? So we will encourage the dog to do things that a dog, a canid, a canine being, would do on a normal, natural way to express themselves. So that's one of the ways we would be looking at encouraging them to express themselves. So for instance, I've just done a Sacred Canine Heart reading with a wonderful lady that has a collie who's only 18 months old, but he's not a dog that is at the moment being able to express himself in the way that genetically and DNA-wise collies have been able to do. So there's different methods that we would encourage that owner to use with the dog, to encourage the dog to express emotionally, to act out its feelings. So emotions, you can see them a little bit like a charge of something. So it comes up in the dog and they need to release it. So for instance, collies would do that in a totally different way to perhaps a dog that was a very strong-jawed dog. So dogs that are very strong-jawed often need a lot of chewing to emotionally express themselves. And this really helps them to calm when they're in a state of anxiety. So there's all different ways that you would encourage your dog to express itself. And a lot of it is allowing them to do this as well, because unfortunately, the majority of training methods, although they are very, very good at situation management, and we absolutely do need them because we don't unfortunately live in a society, especially if you're somewhere very dense like the UK, you don't necessarily live in a society where your dog can just run around and do what it wants to do. So we need some of that training, but what tends to happen is that's all we know. So we're using it all the time and we're limiting our dog from expressing itself. So this accumulates and accumulates in their state of being, which means when things come into them and influence them, they can't cope. So we need to be encouraging them to have as many different outlets of expression as possible. So thinking of this from the human point of view, for instance, I've had quite a lot of people that have come on my retreats before, and as a result of being on them, they've then found they can shift their state of being to allow themselves to go off and like start playing the guitar again, for instance. Oh, take a breath. Get too excited about canine flow. Or to perhaps start painting again, or do something that where they weren't expressing themselves. I remember one lady, she'd really limited herself from joining a choir, and this is what she really wanted to do. And when she went and joined that choir, she was expressing herself. I mean, and that's a wonderful way to do it, isn't it? Because it's a real vibrational expression when you're singing. And you feel it in your heart as well when you're singing. So that's an example within people that might help you understand how it is and why it is that we need our dogs to be able to express themselves. So another way is sniffing. So sniffing is so important. And what you want to do is almost make at least one walk of the day, not a walk, but a sniff. Literally tell yourself, I'm taking the dog out for a sniff. Okay, so it doesn't matter if that dog wants to spend 10 minutes on one lamppost, because that is a real emotional grounding. Dogs express primarily through their mouths, and especially using their VNO, which is an organ that we don't have as human beings. So they will really take in frequencies in through their VNO. That's how they're sensing the world. So, or one of the ways that they're really sensing the world. So really this sniffing is just absolutely huge. And one of the practitioners in the northeast of England, she transformed a rescue dog's behaviour in one of her case studies by taking that dog out for a sniff. So instead of the dog being on the end of the lead when it came out of its rescue kennel, you can imagine that probably the noise and the environment that it's had to have that have been influencing it. She took that dog out and gave it peace and quiet time and the ability to stop and sniff, instead of, I'm a kennel maid that's in a hurry, I've got a lot to do, quickly, let's just go around the field and do the walk. And that kennel maid cares, she wouldn't be doing the job if she didn't, but she's not allowing, hasn't got the time to allow the dog to stop and sniff and ground and express itself. So by the practitioner being able to go in and do that, that was part of why that dog really completely transformed, because that expression was happening. So this is really, really big for me, for us to understand how important it is for our dogs to express, especially if they're being overwhelmed. Because yes, we can change their state of being, and there's a lot of therapies out there that do that as well, wonderful ones. You know, you've got things like zoopharmacognosy, different information going in, changes them, helps with their state of being. It really tries to get them back into the flow again. But we need, for me, to be doing all three stages of this, and to understand why that's really important for dogs and for us as well as human beings, because we limit ourselves, of course, we do as well. And then, of course, if we're limiting ourselves, the influence we're having in our dog will be more impactful as well. We'll have deeper emotions. So don't forget that the dog has the biggest heart per body mass of any creature on the planet. They are in front of us for a reason. They can feel what we feel. I don't think it's any accident that they are the creature that's sticking themselves in front of almost every human. Everywhere you look, people are getting a dog, and people who really need them. So hopefully this is making sense. I'm going to read some of my comments now, because in order to actually connect with you and look at you, I have to look at my camera, which isn't actually the same as my comment screen. So apologies if my eyes now seem to flick away, but I'm just going to have a look at some of the comments and see if there's anybody else that I can welcome onto this live, because we're going to do our Sacred Canine Heart presence meditation in a minute. So let's have a look here. Who's saying hello? Hi, Claire. Claire is a practitioner in Essex. Joe, Bonnie's here, goody goody. Oh, lovely little Bonnie. Hi, Lynn, and Yvonne is here. Alison, hey Alison. Now Alison, you did make a comment, but I have actually forgotten the name of the dog that you wanted to join in. So if you can just make that comment, that would be good, because it wasn't on the event, I don't think. I think it was on my page. So here, Doris is here, that's good. And Gabby. And Marjorie and Merlin are with us. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so if Alison's still with us and she can write down the name of the dog. Otherwise, it's Alison's dog. That's just what I'll include. It's just Alison's dog. So I'm going to bring up my Be Present meditation. So this is a little bit different, really, this meditation. I always say as well, if you can have a straight spine, it does make a difference. It does make a difference because it helps you really to connect down into planet Earth and have the light coming right through you up to source and expanding that light out. So it just gives you that straight spine. I always feel it's really good to do. So as we're sitting here, just still yourselves if you can, wherever you are. You don't have to close your eyes. In fact, it's better that they're open to begin with the presence meditation. In fact, if I move this, I will be able to see if Alison gives us her dogs. Oh, Barney. Okay. Alison and Barney. Okay, I have to cover up my comments now. So I just want you to sort of feel where you're sitting, really. Just really feel what it is that's underneath you, whether it's the cushion or the sofa cushion, whatever it is that's underneath you, the floor. Just really feel the weight of your body. Gravity is keeping you there. So really getting used to that and being aware of this weight. And also start to feel into the taste in your mouth. Is there any taste in your mouth? Did you have a drink before you stopped to listen to us? Or what taste have you got in your mouth? And the smells that you might be able to sense as well. So, feeling yourself, your body there. Taste in your mouth, the smells. And light now. If there's light going into your eyes. Some of you may already have your Christmas lights on. Some of you might have some sunlight coming through. So just notice any light that's coming into your eyes as well. And you can hear, of course, the sound of my voice. But are there any other sounds that are around you as well? So just try to imagine all of those things as all different points of information that are entering you, that are there for you, that you can connect to, that are around you and influencing you. So we can aim to be truly present by recognizing the sensory information that we're taking in. And it's beyond the mind, that's there anyway. We're now becoming consciously aware of that, and we're mentally noting that it's there, but it was there anyway. So the light, the smell, the sound, they're all energy frequencies that are there. And these are frequencies that our dogs are constantly picking up on. So take a deep breath in, right down to your belly and diaphragm area. Breathing out. Breathing in through the nose. And breathing out through the mouth. Just stilling yourself. And just come back to those senses again. Your body, the weight of your body. The taste that's in your mouth. The breath going in through your nostrils. Into your body. Any sounds in your ears. And any light in your eyes. And now even the feeling of the air on the surface of your skin, the air around you. Relaxing and allowing yourself to experience all this. And this is going to pull you into more of a presence. And what you'll notice is that the mind starts to dim, so the thoughts are not as loud. You really start to become present and become aware of what's around you. And this happens even without closing your eyes. So taking in a deep breath, allowing an awareness of the information, and breathing calmly now and closing your eyes. And this presence, this is probably the closest we'll get to how our dogs are experiencing the world. And for those of you who really got there, you'll get it, you'll feel it, you felt it. You suddenly are aware of so much more, and yet mentally you're less aware. But physically and emotionally, you were more aware of everything that was around you. So really stilling yourself now, and if you can, strengthening the light. So imagining that there's a column of light that goes right down from underneath you, right to the center of the earth, deep, deep, deep down into planet Earth, and comes up and through you and up to what we call source, or all the knowledge that there is, and what some might call the Akashic records. So just really connecting up. And part of that is the sacred contract that our dogs have with planet Earth, which I call the sacred canine heart. Just connecting with that and strengthening that pillar of light, and you can give it a colour, whether it's white or golden. It might be a colour that means something to you. And just know that whatever you connect with is safe, supportive, and whatever you connect with will reach your dog. The more light you can bring down and expand around you, the more light you will fill your cells with, and the more light that will be available to your dog next time your dog looks at you, stands near you, and pick up all this wonderful purity. So just now, while our eyes are closed, again consider the other senses, the sounds that we can hear, the taste in our mouth, our body weight heavy, the air on the skin, and the breath. In this state of presence, we can allow our own emotions to flow. Okay, so really keep this pillar now, really strengthen that light and see if you can keep it when you open your eyes. So opening your eyes, but keeping that pillar there, really, really important part of this. Because we can visualize this pillar, we can imagine it there, lighting us, supporting us, guiding us, connecting us. We can keep it throughout our day. If we need it again, we can just imagine it and ping, it's there again. So connects us. And this, of course, helps with our state of being. Okay, so thank you for those that are here. So I'm just going to shuffle the cards now and see if there's anything else that the Canine Heart wants me to share with you. Ah, okay. So it's the peace card, unsurprisingly. A very lovely puppy bulldog. Bless. And the words are, you have the answer. You just need to get quiet enough to hear it, which is very true. One of the reasons that I advocate stopping and being present like we just did is so that we can be aware of the different energy information that's around us. So it's not about sitting in meditation for hours or sitting and creating that stillness for extended periods of time, if you like. And it's definitely not about going into meditation in terms of questioning ourselves and analysing, because that's very much the mind again. And really to understand our dogs, to truly connect and understand with them, we need to come back to our hearts. How do we feel? And not even questioning that, just going back to those senses, the things that we feel beyond the mind's words, the things that are there anyway. And this helps us to connect and to receive answers and to come up with aha moments and ideas and solutions that we may not have considered before, may not have been in our periphery, that may not have been able to get in. So possibilities or plausibilities, as we like to call them in Canine Flow. So bringing in all the different plausibilities to a situation. So, any questions from anybody? Let's have a look. I think I've probably taken you all off somewhere. You don't necessarily want to write. So Lynn and Ruben. Okay, sorry, I hadn't noticed that before. Hi, Kelly. Kelly's joined as well. Okay, so I'm going to leave this up, this live. And if you ever want to listen to it again, you can, of course, do that. And if you want to connect with me on a one-to-one basis, we can also do that. For those of you that have got the anxious dogs, I hope that it's given you pause for thought, if you like, about the different things that could be influencing your dog and different ways that you might be able to influence their state of being, and different ways that you might be able to encourage them to express themselves. We talked about sniffing, and we didn't mention digging. Lots of dogs like to dig. Taking them to the beach to ground. Salt water is quite, not only is the beach very electromagnetically grounding, but it's also full of the salt air, which is very transformational for emotions as well. Okay, thank you for joining. And I just want to send love out to all the dogs and owners that pledged to be part of this, and especially to Joe and to Bonnie, because Joe reached out, really, which we all need to do. Reach out and just say if you need the support, which is not always actually the easiest thing to do, but would always encourage it, definitely. And if anyone's watching this and wondering whether Canine Flow can help with a different behaviour problem, maybe, then perhaps we can do more of these lives and connections specifically on different behaviour problems or different concerns. Okay, so sending you all lots of love, and thank you so much for being part of this and supporting us. Bye for now. Bye.